Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another political episode. So today we got to follow up on an old story, and I call this an old story because they've been talking about this for weeks now, and more Joe Biden is coming out and he's saying, yeah, I could have beaten Trump. And as you can see, he has done this, of course, for about a week now. We're just talking about it now. We just had the mainstream media, CNN is saying, okay, this is absolute lunacy. Uh, of course, you'll see Imke is saying Joe Biden concocts a positive image for his legacy while his party fumes over November. Yes, apparently this guy is delusional because I'll tell you, I explained it to you so many times. Even last year, over a year ago, you can go back to my videos from 2023. I've said this is it for the Democrats. And Joe Biden had the whole window. Democrats had a whole window of 2023 before the primary started to get Joe Biden out, to recognize and open their eyes to see, okay, this guy is cognitively impaired, cognitively not okay, and obviously they're going to blow it in November. And it took over a year, but because they're so cynical and egotistical, they walk in to the New Hampshire primary, the very first contest of the 2024 primaries for the Democrats, thinking, oh, Joe Biden's going to win. Joe Biden picked up 14 million voters. That said, picking up 14 million voters, you would recognize, if you actually believe in democracy and the democratic process, you'd go like, okay, 14 million votes. That's a lot. We should probably go through the Biden nomination, and we can officially rest the claim that this is what the people want: Biden to run for re-election. Ideally, most Americans say, oh, Biden's too old to run. Now, if most of the Americans believe that, it's not their fault for not voting in the Democratic primaries. I get most Americans are Democrats, obviously, so it's not their business. And not to mention, not all Democrats, most of the members of a political party don't even participate in the primaries. So what do they care? But 14 million votes, that's a lot. That is a huge amount of votes, especially for a president that is running in an election to get renominated, even though ideally he already has the nomination because he's the president. You'll know that Donald Trump got the nomination over 90% of the popular vote because he's the president. And not to mention, a lot of Republicans so-called hate him, but it's their fault for not voting for Bill Weld in the Republican primaries in 2020. It's their fault. And because they didn't do that, Trump got renominated over 90% of the popular vote. But of course, Joe Biden dropped out due to the pressure of the Democratic Party. And of course, Joe Biden's going now and having his moment. Told you so, I could have beaten Trump. Well, we can all agree on the one thing: Democrats, mainstream media, Republicans, we all agree. Joe Biden couldn't have beaten Trump. We know this. Taking a look at the election results of 2024, you'll see right on the board, Donald Trump won Arizona by 5.5% of the popular vote. He was like, take a look at Maricopa County, 3.5%. He almost got it passed more than I actually expected. I was hoping Donald Trump would carry it over by 1 percentage point. He overdid that. He actually carried it by over a point, 3 percentage points, almost 4 points if you actually look at it, halfway to 4 percentage points. And obviously, imagining if this was, let's just say, Joe Biden in this race, Maricopa County would probably go for Trump by 6 points, at least. And obviously, how that would affect the Republican vote overall, I wish I could edit this margin-wise, but I can't. But I would believe that this would make this election would probably be. We could even compare this to the 2018 Arizona gubernatorial race, where Governor Doug Ducey performed the latest. I would say, I would say Doug Ducey, his performance there, 56%, that would have been a landslide. Taking a look at those results, as you could clearly see, let's go ahead, going all the way down, you'll see Maricopa, 55%. I doubt No, I doubt Maricopa County would have gone to Biden by Trump by 55%. But we got to remember, yeah, not everyone in the country thinks Biden's delusional. They would think, oh yeah, Biden's delusional, but we're still going to vote for him because Trump bad, Trump evil. We must remember. Joy Reid said it herself. She would vote for Biden in a coma. They would vote for Biden in a coma over Trump. There are so many people, 30% of Americans at least, will show up at the polls to vote early to make sure that Trump doesn't get into office. They made themselves clear with that. But looking like, let's see, Minnesota, Arizona state treasurer race. Yeah, I think it would look sort of similar to something like this. I doubt Maricopa would go as, I would say maybe 53. Let's see how Maricopa County voted for Treasurer Kimberly Yee. I think ideally, election-wise, let's see, Arizona Election Atlas. We're taking the focus off of Joe Biden and looking at Arizona specifically because I want to know how much Arizona would have went to Trump if Biden was actually the nominee. So taking a look here, and I'm sure you would want to know too, 55%. I still have a hard time believing that Trump would win the county by 55%. Ideally, I believe personally, this would have been like 54, 55, maybe 53% of the popular vote for maybe 54%. Ideally, it would have been a likely or almost likely Republican margin for Donald Trump in Arizona. So obviously a huge indication when it comes to that. But yeah, Iowa would have probably been solid Republican. Yeah, we could actually take out APMS right now YAPMS and actually look at the margins. So ideally, the answer, Joe Biden thinks he could have beaten Trump. Ideally, Biden, I don't think has ever been defeated in an election, especially in a Senate race. I mean, he comes from a more reliably blue state. He rose to power by defeating a incumbent senator, Republican Senator Boggs, back in the 1970s. And Biden was just he was a city council member of Newcastle County, or Wilmington, or whatever that was. And he defeated a popular senator. He proved to the United States, not just Delaware, but to the United States, that he was a very strong politician. And that's probably why the establishment was so prominent. I'm referring to the Democrat establishment. The Democrat establishment so prominent and so insistent that the United States, the Democrats would go with Biden. Okay? I would say, I think Biden would win Maine by just. And now there's a lot of predictions that say, oh yeah, I know there is a lot of things like Biden was losing 400 electoral votes. Okay, I'm having a hard time believing that Trump would have got 400 electoral votes, especially with 30% of the population so deranged and deluded. Yes, poll wise and finance and money wise, it would have looked like Biden would lose 400 electoral. Trump would win 400 electoral votes, but would he? I have a hard time believing that. Even though, sure, most of the Democrats are not enthused with Biden, but they would vote for him anyway. They would vote for him anyway because they hate Trump. And they're not going to donate. They're not going to participate in polls like they did with Kamala Harris. This isn't about Democrats winning. This is about Trump losing to them. And ultimately, I just do not buy that, if Biden was nominee, Trump would have won 400 electoral votes. Trump would have won New York. Trump would have flipped Minnesota. No, I think ideally, Trump would have won way more states. And I'll go over which I think what I think it would possibly look like. But this is obviously, I think Maine would probably go for Biden just by a little bit. Some say, oh no, but Maine would probably go for Trump by a little bit. Well, I don't know. I generally think there's just too many. Maine is starting to become like a Vermont, and I noticed there's a lot of TDS people in Maine. I do think that Trump would win New Hampshire pretty good, pretty solid. I would say solidly, but in more of a tilting margin. Vermont would go, of course, for Biden. Massachusetts, you got, like, take a look at New Hampshire. New Hampshire would have probably went to Biden by, well, actually, I think it would go leaning for Biden, because Biden's very unpopular in Rhode Island for some reason. Connecticut, 14. Yeah, Connecticut's more liberal than old Rhode Island. But I think it would have been, like, yeah, probably leaning Democrat. 12. Yeah, I think leaning Democrat in New York would have been crazy. Yeah, New York would have gone for Biden by a leaning margin. You would have got Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania, yeah, I went to Trump by 1.7, but I think it would have went to him by like 4, almost 5 points. Yeah, I'm starting to, I think, have that feeling, maybe 5. I don't know, but we'll kind of say, yeah, we'll rest our case with 5 points. How about that? 5 percentage points. New Jersey allegedly would have went to Trump. So I will go ahead, but I'm going to say it would probably gone to Biden by a tiny bit, mainly because of the, I would say, the Trenton and the New York suburbs. I think it's hard to win there. Delaware, I would say lean Democrat. Maryland, you can even, yeah, this is insane. It's hilarious how close it could have been. I think West Virginia, Trump, I have a feeling Trump would have won in Virginia. DC would have went for Biden, of course, by a solid win there. North Carolina, probably leaning victory, or you could make an argument that it would have been likely Republican. You would have got South Carolina solid. Georgia, I would think Georgia, I would say leaning for sure, mainly because a lot of the African Americans in said you'll see a lot of trends in regards to the black belt over here, the blue blob. A lot of black women went for Harris, and I think if those black women or black men in general wouldn't have voted for Harris, or they would have stayed home, a lot of African American men thought about staying home. They probably would have went the other way. But yes, you'll clearly see here, I would say, leaning Republican. Florida for sure. Alabama solid. Here you got the state of Ohio, 11 points. I would say, yeah, solid, or maybe likely. I'm not so sure. Probably likely. We'll change it over time. Indiana, Michigan. Oh yeah, Michigan. I think would probably go leaning Republican. Wisconsin, leaning. I'm tilting, I should say. Joe Biden had been doing good there, according to polls, but you can never trust the polls, right? Biden would probably be close in losing Illinois, but this is supposedly what I think it would have looked like if Joe Biden stayed in the race, and ideally it was done for Democrats anyway. Yeah, I think Biden would have lost Minnesota. It's just he has so much opposition. It's crazy to think about, but I think it can be done. But yes, you'll see North Dakota. You got Nebraska. Yeah, I think that Trump would pick up Nebraska too, because look at Nebraska too. You take a look at, yeah, you just have, yeah, he could, Harris won Lancaster by a little bit. You got Saunders and Sarpy County. Those are the two counties in Nebraska, too, that are for Republicans, although Douglas County, it did not go solid as a lot of people had anticipated. It went likely, actually, 10%, and almost went to leaning. So that was kind of indicated Harris's numbers over there. 13 Nebraska won. I think Nebraska won. Would have. Let's see. Yeah, we got Kansas. You'll see Texas there. I think Texas kind of comparable to. Yeah, Texas is more conservative than Ohio, but it would have gone solidly. And then you have Trump already winning the election. New Mexico, would it have gone for Biden? I don't know. Maybe by a little bit. We'll say it's a tilting Democrat victory there. I think it's going to be a leaning victory for Biden in Colorado. The rest here, big victory. Well, 5 percentage point, almost a likely victory, I would say, in Arizona for Trump. But yeah, you'll see, like right here, the tilting Republican states. Right here, I mean that you flip those states in the leaning area. Trump, if Biden Biden would have lost to Trump by my indication, 7 points, 6 points. If she stayed in the race, which I'm kind of disappointed. I kind of wish he did. But the Democrat Party, to a point, they're kind of dumb. I mean, they put so much trust in Harris, but to a part, they're smart that, hey, look, our guy, he's not the guy that can win. He's not that guy. We shouldn't put our faith and trust in Biden. He did so bad. The public's not enthused. We got to throw him out. And that's exactly what they did, despite 14 million voters voting for him. So, yeah, I would think Nevada for sure would have gone for Trump by a leaning margin. Oregon would have gone maybe, I would say 9 points for Biden, but yeah, he has sort of disapproval there too. And Hawaii, but this is sort of my idea on what it would have looked like. I don't really buy into the idea that, oh, Trump, he's going to flip New York. Trump would flip Colorado and Illinois. Trump would have flipped New Jersey, even though I'm kind of skeptical with that too, because I think it's too early. I mean, a lot of people have said back in June, before Joe Biden even dropped out, that it's not looking good. Trump would probably trounce Biden, but probably not in New Jersey. Although the indications of this election result said, Trump would have trounced Biden in New Jersey. But this is my indication of what the election would have looked like if Biden had stayed in. It's 340 for Trump, 198, and that would have been the first time since 1988 where the Democrat nominee hasn't got over 200 electoral votes. Michael Dukakis was that last Democrat nominee, and although you would put what I like to call a role of John McCain syndrome, where you fail to get over 200 electoral votes. John McCain's the only Republican nominee nominee in the whole century to fail to get over 200 electoral votes. That's why 2008 was so brutal for the Republican Party. But obviously, big indications there. What were polls saying before Biden dropped out, you may ask? Well, what does the polls say? Well, the polls were saying, if we get rid of this, Biden was winning in Minnesota. Biden was winning in New Hampshire, Maine. We can give Maine, and let's see. Yeah. Give me a second. But yeah, he was winning in all the swing states. The additional pickup that Trump was winning was Virginia, which was kind of weird because Virginia, I still think it would have went to Trump if Biden still stayed in, but he would probably have won New Jersey more easier than compared to Virginia. But this is what the polls were saying, and although a Trump versus Biden scenario would have been much better. Yeah, I even have Trump win. Trump was even winning in Nebraska too, believe it or not. Polls were having him win there. But yeah, it was just a really bad scenario for Joe Biden altogether. So the myth of Joe Biden thinking, "Oh, I'm going to win. I would have beaten Trump." Yeah, he's probably saying that because ideally Joe Biden hasn't really lost a big race in his whole entire career, but Joe Biden should be honestly very, very, very uh, proud. Like, I mean, not relieved that he dropped out, because I think Democrats kind of did him a favor, saying, "Hey, look, if you had stayed in the race, you would have been like Gerald Ford, uh, losing for the first time in your whole political career, and out of all the times you lost the presidential race, Gerald Ford won every single election in his whole entire political career from the start to his failed presidential run. Joe Biden would have been that politician, the man who took out a popular sitting senator in the United States Senate from representing Delaware, despite being a county councilman from Newcastle County, Delaware, to now losing the presidential bid. You could essentially say, "Yeah, Joe, we spared you. Honestly, I know you're salty about us kicking you out, and ideally, I'm not saying that was good. Honestly, Democrats should be ashamed of themselves. They deprioritized American voters, 14 million Americans that wanted Joe Biden to run for re-election, that stood in the line for Joe Biden and his campaign, that showed up at his rallies. They deprioritized them. They forced them out, and they withdrew the money from his campaign in order to intimidate him. They saw the writing on the wall. Joe Biden is just being salty right now. Does he really think that he would have won? I think he kind of does, but then again, it's not because he has dementia. I think he's just a lot of politicians, it's not just Trump, but they are egotistical a bit. They are a little ahead of themselves and just think of themselves. Not if Joe Biden would have run and lost to Donald Trump, he wouldn't have jeopardized his whole political career and basically became one of the 12 U.S. presidents to lose re-election in a presidential bid. But he would have been blamed for putting Hitler, as they like to call him, back into the White House. And the Democrats will call him the worst president, after Hitler, of course, to ever walk the earth. So obviously, Joe Biden, Democrats, Joe Biden, I think he should leave office. I think Joe Biden has a lot to worry about other than his political career. His health is going down, and he's obviously next in line. I hate to be dim and dark, to leave the surface of the earth. I mean, this guy is declining as far as we know it. I think it would be delusional if we say he wasn't, and that, we don't really know who will be next to die. Well, are you saying Bill Clinton? Honestly, that's something we care less about. Who's dying next is not what we care about. What we care about is making America great again and recovering America, making America recover from the disastrous Biden administration. So what do you guys think in regards to our analysis today? Let me know down below. And as always, I'll see you all in the next political episode.